Thank you. Thanks, Cheryl. So, hi everyone. I'm Nancy Yuen, and as Cheryl mentioned, I am a Googler, and I started about a year ago. I'm the senior manager in our revenue accounting team, overseeing the SOX compliance program for our advertising and also our billing and payments processes. That's all the boring stuff. So on to kind of why we're here. We'll kind of go through talk a little bit about my journey, and I think you've heard from Rob and from Nick that the journey is so important. Your authenticity during that journey can look so different, and I like to talk about that. I also want to go over kind of my passion about expressing your authenticity at work, what that looks like also when you're not at work, and why those two may look different, or maybe even why, and explore why should they look different. And then also talk about some recurring questions I have that will delve a little bit deeper into my journey, and then also some observations, and also going into here at Google, we are evaluated on an annual cycle, and one of the evaluation components is based on Googleyness. And so we'll talk about some of the traits that are comprised in being Googly. And also, when I'm going through those, either with my team or even during self-evaluations, there is something about there that I can use to display my authenticity as a follower of Christ, and I like to share that too. And also to then leave you with some parting thoughts, and then also some just like tidbits about me, and also some links of how to get in contact with me. I'd love to continue this dialogue, even though I am quite introverted. That's exposing me a lot. So that's my team's logo. We are the Care Bears, and we'll go into that a little bit too. But really about me, my journey started back in Boston. I am from the East Coast. I was born to two Chinese immigrants who had migrated here to get their education. And, hold on, sorry. Unlike Rob and Nick, I am just depending on my crutch just a little bit. But this is really the highlights, and I think as we continue this journey and dialogue and you get to know me, you're going to see, a little bit more of the details. But of course, like Instagram, this is like the highlights reel, and there is going to be one part that is going to be quite dark, and I'll kind of go into why it's so important to have that darkness in your life. But yeah, raised outside of Boston in a little suburb called Yuen, Massachusetts, and there, when I was 4 years old, I started down the journey in music. I was in piano, not through my own choosing, which I think some of you can relate out there. And yes, I have imposed that to my 3 children. It is good for you. But really, and what, let's talk about why. But really, my passion came when I chose the violin, and we'll talk about that. And then also my passion for marine biology. That was me and my best friend. Okay, so just trying to kind of gain ground. Part of that journey also involved growing up as the oldest of 2 siblings, and what that means in terms of being the oldest and being a protector of my 2 brothers, and also kind of bearing the brunt of my parents. And so childhood was really rough. I'm going to leave it at that. And I think as kind of someone who has not seen God and not shared it, I grew up in a Buddhism home, and so God was not present. And that laid into this foundation of kind of like, where is God? I hear about God from my friends in school. I see it like when I pass churches, but I didn't know him. And I think at that point, being agnostic and really having these really bad things happen to you and not having a rescuer can draw you into that period of being agnostic and being, hey, I can do this, like I got this. And so that was probably part of my darkest points in my life. And I think it doesn't help when you have that and you have someone, I think it was one of my teachers in high school gave me an A+ for basically being a devout agnostic believer. Didn't help. I think it encouraged me to think that I could do it all on my own. And so that is a part that I like to reference, and you'll see that it is such a powerful tool. As I went into college, that kind of belief started eroding. I started having friends that were Christian that showed me that life could be so much different. And it's such a struggle to believe. It's such a struggle to get to that point. I think someone had asked about, hey, I was really into science, I was really into mathematics, and it's really hard to work yourself away from that and to actually take that leap of faith into something that cannot be proven. So I thought, could not be seen, could not be touched. That's very, very difficult. And I think I needed that as I went into college, because then that helped me answer questions along the way, but still not enough. And so I graduated from UC Davis with a degree in neurobiology, and you're going to wonder why the heck am I in finance here at Google? And it's a journey. But I have to start with, it's so important for me to talk here, and I'm so thankful to be at a culture like Google where you can be authentic, where you can express your belief, where you can come together like this in the presence of God and experience something so awesome and so powerful. And back in 2001, I gave my life to Jesus, and I came to church with a coworker. And that's why I'm so just enthused about being here, because your coworkers are your life. And I'm going to show you in the next slide. They're your life for a long part of the day. And I think when they're vulnerable and they can share with you Christ, that's so amazing. And that's so amazing that we can do that. So I'm going to speed through. I was an auditor at KPMG. I was at Clorox, and now I am here at Google. So I had shown these slides to Cheryl, and I'd said, okay, Cheryl, here's a bunch of slides, go at it, let me have it. I want to talk about authenticity. And she said, you gave me some really good points, but what about you? People want to get to know you. And so what is your typical day like? And then I put, I'm like, okay, I don't know, that's kind of boring. But I think when you lay it all out, you see why it's so important to be authentic, to be passionate about what you do. Because 80% of my day is here, and 80% of my life is with others that I don't live with, that are not part of my family. And so it's so important for you to be you, and we'll talk about that. Some of the questions that I personally wrestle with is, number one, can I express authenticity in little dosages, or can I just fully be me? And I think that's a lot to do with your psychological safety of the environment that you're in. And then the second question that I often hear is, okay, the founders have told me I can bring my whole self to work. Can you really do that? Can you really do that? Can you really progress your career? Can you meet what we call here our annual evaluation perf, and be the authentic you? And the last part is, what are the advantages? What are the advantages of being authentic? If I have to give so much and actually take a big hit sometimes and be called out for being authentic, for being direct, what are the advantages of that? So I want to explore that. And then also, the age-old question that you can sometimes link to and your faith is that question, that really, really, really safe question of, what did you do over the weekend? And I use that because my personal story is that the answer to this question differs. It differs to who I talk with. It differs to who I meet with. If you are someone, and you and I are on JVC over a meeting, and you ask me, and we have some time to kill because we're waiting for folks, as we always are, that take that 5-minute rule, and you ask me, hey, what did you do over the weekend? I will quickly assess you, and I will quickly determine, number one, do I know you? Do I know if you're a Christian? Am I safe enough to kind of really tell you what happened over the weekend? Or are you someone higher up and you're maybe expecting me to do a little bit of work over the weekend? And I kind of build those in. But my mind is running all these algorithms to figure out, hey, how should I answer that? Because your response, unsaid or said, could be actually pretty meaningful, good or bad. So things like for me to admit that hey, you know what? On Saturday, I took my kids around to all their lessons. I might just stop there. Or I might say, hey, you know what? I burned kind of the candles at both ends this week, so I kind of took a day off but picked it back up a little bit on Sunday, right, for the executive that I'm meeting with. And then to someone who I'm close to someone that I know who is a Christian, I may say, hey, you know what? It was a crazy weekend. You know what it's like. You try to get everything done with the family on Saturday, and then Sunday is like all full of like just worshiping God and resetting yourself. Am I safe to say that to everyone? No, I don't think so. I'm still learning that though, because I'd like to say that. And that's kind of the journey that I have, is to be able to tell people, hey, yeah, Sunday was so great. Here's the sermon that we're learning. We're reading the story. We're having this awesome moments of just revelation. We're in God's presence, and we're journeying through this together as a church. You know, I shared that I played the violin. I'm part of the worship team at Crosswinds. It's pivotal. People come up, and they'll just bow down and just have mercy, you know, and it's just so amazing. You'll have moments like this that you want to share that jump out of you, but to hear you share it with could make a difference. And I'd like for us to kind of get to that point where we're vulnerable and to be able to share that, because you don't know. You're placing a judgment, I am, on others who really need to hear that message, to have that thought that, hey, you know, Nancy goes to church. She's different. I'm hitting a low point. I can talk to her. That's something that we should strive for, especially here at Google. So, observations. Number one, you can't measure it. I said, you know, can you release it in dosages? It's really just a liberation of God's design. Authenticity is who you're designed to be. It's who you are. It's that journey that you're in at that moment. The other thing is that someone asked, authenticity, can I be authentic at work? You know, when I'm taking that Myers-Briggs or when I'm taking that StrengthsFinder, you know, who do I be? Do I be the at work me, or do I be that not at work me? And, you know, I say, the Screen Actors Guild isn't calling. We want you. And that's why I share with my team, when you answer that test, I want you. I want to see who you are, because your natural gifting, and I didn't share this, but what God's given you is actually so valuable because it naturally works. It's part of your genetic makeup. It's who you're made to be. That is your authentic self. The other thing is, when you, Nick had a picture of someone surfing. That's what it feels like, is when you catch a wave, it's so smooth. When you're riding that, I love skiing, so when you're carving that turn and you're making those S-turns, you're pulling and everything's just, and you're just cruising and you have that feeling that, hey, God's got my back. That's authenticity. That's you living out. You know, all your seemingly worldly impairments, your honest given, God-given gifts, that is authenticity. So I like acronyms because you saw 80% of my days here, and it's like back-to-back meetings. So I like to have easy things to remember. So I attribute it to what I call the acronym CAT. So you have to have a catitude. You have to be a little bit catty. You have to have a Christ-like humility. This means that for me, when I come to meet with you, I'm humble. There's nothing about me that deserves to be here. There's nothing about me that has given me the expertise to speak about this. This is, you know, just God, hopefully, you know, giving me the courage, and I know my voice is so shaky, but just God being here and giving me that sense of, hey, Nancy, I want you to speak with these people. That's the humility that we must have when we show authenticity. We also need to have audacity. It takes courage to come out here and be yourself in this world, especially in Silicon Valley. And I know that we have a talk coming up. It's hard, and I think you need to stand firm, or else you're going to get bowled over really quick. The other thing is tenacity. The world could up-level around you, and you need to stay strong. And the way that you stay strong is you stay in the Word. You stay in God's presence, and He'll give you that fortitude. There's also the PTA mom. So I'm often attributed with, you know, hey, she's a working mom, let's go talk to her, you know, and you saw my schedule. Part of the schedule earlier this week was actually volunteering at a PTA event, and the comment that I got was, oh my goodness, Nancy, you're doing everything. You're this, you know, person that works at Google, you have 3 children, you have a happy husband, you live in such and such, you drive such and such. How do you do it? And you still have time to volunteer, and you brought a pie in for our team. You know, and what she didn't know was that over the weekend I yelled at the kids. I spanked one, yelled at the kids, and lost my temper at my husband. I also had way too much coffee, and I'm still trying to lose some of the baby weight, so I hadn't eaten, and that I had driven the kids to church over the weekend, and one of them didn't even bring shoes. So, like how to make a last minute to Target. No, I didn't have it all together. But what did I say? I said, oh yeah, no, it's totally fine. But what she probably needed to hear was all that junk. And one of the things that I like to say is authenticity. It's not perfection. It's right? Like, it's not. And if you think about that, it's something where, I'm going to just kind of speed through because I'm out of time, but it's something where it's your journey. And so some of the things that I'd like to kind of go back to is our Googleyness principles. It's our Googleyness traits. There are 6 of them. There's 3 of them. The bottom ones are the puts the user first, does the right thing, cares about the team. The top 3 are the ones that we're going to focus on about ambiguity, feedback, and challenging the status quo. So one of the things that we're going to talk about is, and the reason why I left the other 3 out is it just makes sense. Being nice, you know how to do that. You know how to do that since preschool. But the first 3 are a little bit more difficult. So thriving in ambiguity. So what I did was I kind of broke this out into an equation. Ambiguity requires you to use your God-given gifts. That's why that mask that you take off and on, it doesn't work because God has already wired you perfectly the way that you are. Use it. The other thing is he gives you life experiences. And Nick talked about that wonderful diagram with all the emojis. That's what it looks like. Life gives you those peaks and valleys. Use them. Use them to be a little bit smarter the next time. Use them to leverage off of, prior learnings. The other thing is you have to have hope, patience, and perseverance. God asks for that. God instructs us in the Bible to have that faith, to walk forward, to know that he's got your back. If you can do that, you can navigate through this ambiguous world, especially here at Google, especially here in the Silicon Valley. And I wanted to share with you a couple verses, especially for Philippians 3:14, and then also Matthew 6:33, because we talk a lot about perseverance. We talk a lot about, hey, you got to just go get it, especially here at Silicon Valley. But we have to turn our eyes back to Jesus. And you have to realize that when you're persevering for the prize that in Philippians 3:14, it says, I press on toward the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus. That is your destination. If you have that in mind, you can navigate any ambiguity. I guarantee it. The other thing is for Matthew 6:33, but seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. He'll provide. You have to know that. At the end, there is an answer. If you're willing to persevere and be in his presence, he will provide those answers for you during those ambiguous times. The feedback. Why does feedback matter? Well, it's how you receive it and how you give it. And I love the New Yorker cartoon, so I added this one. Life is a mess. Let other folks know. Let other folks know that your life is a mess. I need to let other people know that I didn't eat, that I had too much coffee, that my kids' shoes weren't in the car. I need to let people know that because that's me, and it allows them to be them. And the other things that we talk about is you get freedom. You get freedom through living authentically. If you provide a psychologically safe environment for your team or your friends, family to come to you and share with you feedback, you learn from it. And then you apply it in my equation from the prior slide. And that'll help you navigate this world and this life. Challenging the status quo. Normal is boring. Be extraordinary. That's what you're designed to do. Let your authenticity contrast with this world. Don't be afraid to be just the authentic you. But my warning, and especially ones that I've learned personally, is to be authentic but not obnoxious. There's a difference. There's a difference between being direct and being authentic. You have to do it with care, and you have to do it with humility. So some things that I want to share with is, especially here at Google, is who your boss is. And, it's, for me, God. It's whatever I do for the Lord. So I'm going to just end it there and then leave a slide up a little bit about me. And we'll go to Q&A. And I know I went really over.